Hi everyone, welcome to episode 13 of Food Culture Curious. On this week's episode, my friend and registered dietitian Marie Morales talks to us all about her Mexican-American food culture growing up on the border, and also about how she works with the Hispanic population in their diabetes nutrition care. I do want to give you a heads up, we did record this episode on a particularly rainy day, so it does cut out a couple of times. But it's still a wonderful episode. Enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to Food Culture Curious. My name is Areli. I'm a registered dietitian on a mission to help healthcare professionals be more culturally competent with their nutrition recommendations. Today we have my friend and registered dietitian Marie Morales. She is a board certified diabetes educator and the owner of Amore Nutrition. Today she's going to talk to us about her food culture and how she works with her niche. Welcome, Marie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So we'll jump right into it. What food cultures do you identify with?
I identify with Mexican American cuisine, a little bit of both.
Yeah, I remember when we first talked about this podcast, like over a year ago, probably, we talked about how, for a lot of us, like, yes, our family came from Mexico and they migrated, but for some people from Mexico, like the border jumped them, like you were talking about how your family has been already in Texas for generations.
I do feel, when I was thinking about my culture and what I identify with, and it's just such a mix. I couldn't say 100% one or the other. It's definitely like I wouldn't say a 50-50 because I feel like I do identify maybe more with the Mexican culture, but there's definitely aspects that I feel I identify with that are very American.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your particular food culture, in your household growing up. What were the major starches, proteins, and produce that you would have?
Yeah, so the typical protein I feel is red meat. I feel like it's big on, red meat, sausage, chorizo. And then, of course, you have chicken and maybe some seafood, but it was heavy on the red meat. And then the starches were like tortillas, rice, pastas, like in a little fideo. But then also, of course, it was a lot of sandwiches and burgers and pizza and spaghetti and hamburger helper, like quesadillas, where, you just put cheese in a tortilla and melt it and call it a day. So those are some of the typical foods that I grew up with. The produce was heavily just like onion, chili, and tomato, and cooking with garlic.
And what's funny is now when I think about food growing up, I don't even know what's actually Mexican food and what's Tex-Mex. So now when I think about like panchos or lonches, I'm like, wait, is that actually like, do they eat that like deeper into Mexico, or is that just a border thing? Is that just a Tex-Mex thing?
Exactly. That's how I feel. And now I'm learning about all these Mexican dishes that maybe, like for instance, nopales. I love nopales. And I never ate nopal growing up ever. And, maybe it was because, I don't know, maybe my family had forgotten about nopales. I don't know. But that's one thing that I'm like, man, I wish I would have eaten more of this growing up because it's so nutritious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I know you mentioned you guys grew up cooking with garlic a lot. Was there any other spices and cooking oils that were prominent?
The cooking oil, we cooked a lot with vegetable oil. And then we used a lot of the bouillon cubes, like the bouillon flavored chicken, flavored tomato, comino. It was a lot of cooking with, like I said, garlic, onion, chile, tomato, cilantro. Pepper. Those were the main ones that we cooked with. I don't feel like we ventured off very much. It wasn't a huge diversity in our cuisine.
And then right now with the holidays coming up, are there any dishes that you saw a lot during Christmas?
Definitely menudo and tamales. That's huge. It's like you can't do Christmas without menudo or tamales. So that's a big one, and I'm excited for it coming up to eat. And then, of course, I feel like the desserts that I ate, it wasn't specific to a holiday. We had desserts all the time. It was always sweet bread or pan dulce from the bakery, or, empanadas, conchas. So those are our main desserts. Oh, well, of course, like in Thanksgiving, the pecan pie, the pumpkin pie, and of course that's more American, but we definitely have those pies at Thanksgiving without a doubt.
Yeah, my family always did those, and we did banana cream, and my tia would only ever make them during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I love that. We don't make that one in my family, but it's so good. I love it.
And then for Christmas, are there any desserts you only see during Christmas season or around New Year's?
I can't think of one. Like I said, I feel like there's some Mexican traditions that kind of got away from us, like Rosca del Reyes. We don't celebrate that. I feel like other families would that we were close to, but we never really partook in the rosca.
But yeah, it happens. I know in my family, I didn't learn about the Day of the Dead until I was much older. I was already an adult, and I had never practiced, creating an altar or doing the offering, the foods for the people that have passed on. But I know that people from my family in Mexico would do it, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes, some things get passed on and some things don't.
Hmm.
But for Christmas in particular, I know in our family, my tia makes these cookies. And again, I don't know if they're like Mexican recipe cookies or they're just like her cookies, but that's what she always makes um, over Christmas. Do you guys do anything in particular over Christmas?
Yes, we always have the abuelita chocolate, which is basically hot chocolate. And that's, again, I don't know if it's a Mexican thing or an American, like Mexican American thing. And it's just so good. So we definitely have hot chocolate with abuelita chocolate. And that's one thing that we love. Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing with us about your personal food culture and about the holidays. I love talking about them since they're coming up.
Mhm.
Right now, if it's okay, I'd like to switch over to talking about nutrition care. What are some major challenges that you feel our population faces?
I feel that well, first of all, I think when we're children growing up, our grandparents or our parents, they don't like to see us skinny. If we're skinny, we're like undernourished, we're like malnutridos. It's like they want us a little bit chubby, to them that's healthy. And I think that kind of starts things off, because they're giving us a lot of foods to help us gain weight. And then let's say we do gain the weight, or we have developed these particular eating habits. Once we get older, it's kind of hard to find the right information on how to improve eating habits, or how to, once you're an adult, how to lose weight if you are overweight. And so I think that's where a lot of it stems from is, when we're younger. And I remember when I was younger, I had gained some weight when I was about 8 years old. And that was the time Slim Fast was coming out and all these crazy diets. And I don't know, I just started doing all these crazy diets. And I lost weight. I mean, it was a chaotic eating pattern, but I did lose weight. And I remember my grandma telling me, like, are you okay? Why are you, you would look so much better with 10 more pounds, 10 more pounds, you would look better. And so, of course, I don't know, I guess, in the late 90s, like pop culture everyone was telling you to be skinny. So I do feel like I kind of fell into that. So it's kind of like everyone's telling you need to gain weight. And then, but you don't want to gain weight because you're seeing these supermodels really skinny, and it's just, it's chaotic. And then there's so many in the border, we're from the border of Texas and Mexico. it's just a lot of junk food. It's a lot of hot Cheetos. It's a lot of chamoy. It's a lot of pickles everywhere. It's a lot of takis, desserts, nachos, aguas frescas. I mean, it's just everything everywhere. It's a lot of basically carb heavy, sugar heavy, ultra processed foods that, it's there all the time. And so I feel like that's kind of, as far as the Mexican American culture, especially living on the border, I feel like that's kind of what we're fed. We're in this weird space of, eating these really ultra processed foods is, the norm. But then also, you may also fall into like that diet culture of like, I want to be skinny too. So then your whole diet is just junk food, but you're also trying to be skinny. I don't know. It's like this weird mix, but that's how I
Yeah.
felt it was, where, we're from in the border. It was
Of conflicting information because you have what's normal for our culture as Mexicans and then what's normal for the culture in America. And that didn't always,
mm-hmm,
align. Yeah. The hard part with the valley is also we have access to the convenience of American food. We don't have to struggle with getting places, on foot. So I feel like in the
mm-hmm,
summers when I would go to Mexico, yes, I had access to high energy food. But you walk everywhere or you're taking the bus everywhere.
mm-hmm,
You're always outside. There's public transportation. There's like people are just
mm-hmm,
outside, you know? So you have that activity to kind of balance out
mm-hmm,
um,
mm-hmm,
the calories. Like, but in the valley, you don't
mm-hmm.
maybe now it's I haven't lived there for a while, but growing up you didn't see that. So you had access to the food, but not access to the activity, you know?
Physical activity. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So it's a balance between weight and health in our culture.
So, if you don't mind, I would like to learn a little bit more about what you focus on in particular as a dietitian. Like, one, what made you want to become a dietitian? And then two, where have you taken it from there?
I had no idea what I wanted to be, but I was always into fitness. I started being an aerobics instructor when I was like 16, 17 years old at a local gym, and I was always into fitness, and I was always conscious of what I was eating. Looking back, I had horrible eating patterns, but I was, I guess you can say, conscious more of my weight, and so therefore I was conscious of what I ate, but it was a mess, let me tell you. So then I studied nutrition. And to be quite honest, I mean, in nutrition, they teach you the nutrition science. And nutrition, it's more than a science, it's an art. It's how do you motivate yourself to make different changes in your eating and in your lifestyle. And so I guess going back to your question, I just got into it because I guess, like, I like the superficial aspect of it. I like the fitness. I liked the dieting, the losing weight, all that stuff. But then it evolved because when my first job was in San Antonio, Texas, at the Texas Diabetes Institute. And I remember giving these group diabetes classes and going over the symptoms of diabetes. And I remember saying to myself, I have all of these symptoms. Like, this is weird. And I would tell my coworkers and I'd be like, but I have these symptoms. And they would tell me, like, no, you're crazy. You're so young. You're so active. You're fine. And then I got my lab work done for employee health, and for some reason they ran an A1C, and my A1C came out like a 6, which is pre-diabetes. And it's not even the start of pre-diabetes. It's like the middle of pre-diabetes. And I was like, I knew it. I knew something was weird with my sugars. And so that's when I really took a deeper dive into, okay, it's not just calories. It's what's the quality of what you're eating, what other factors are affecting me, like sleep, like stress, and all these things. And so that's when I really started looking at nutrition for the beauty of what it is, which is, how do you eat and how do you live to feel your best, not just to look your best, because you could look your best and be very unhappy. And so I really started taking it from there, and I started building these different teaching methods to where it's not just, oh, this is a carb, this is a protein. It's like, okay, let's incorporate this into your life, and this is why, and what, and how are you going to motivate yourself when you're not. So that's kind of like how I got into nutrition, and what my specialty is diabetes, and kind of how it evolved over time.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think a lot of people just focus on the what, like how you said, people just focus on teaching, okay, well, this is a protein, this is, this is a carb, this is, and then they kind of like send you on your way. Versus when you actually take into account motivation and motivational interviewing and discussing their barriers, it goes so much further than just the food as
Mm-hmm.
far as how we help people.
Exactly.
So it's not enough just to, I mean, anyone can Google, what is the concept of
Exactly.
protein? It's
Mm-hmm.
not
What should my
just,
macros be?
yeah. It's more like, how can we change your lifestyle so that you can achieve these goals in a realistic way, in a culturally inclusive way, like all those
Mhm.
nuances. That's what we do.
And it's funny how we're talking about culture, because I find it when I have like Mexican or Hispanic, pretty much from any Hispanic country or Americans, I find it so much easier to recommend foods and work out a good plan for them, because I'm familiar. And when you're not familiar with the culture, and like, when I get patients from other cultures that I'm not familiar with, I find it very difficult, because if they, like, for instance, if I'm doing a consultation with someone who tells me something about enchiladas, I know exactly how it's made. And I can say, oh, okay, well, this, and that. But if someone from a different culture tells me, like, oh, I eat, and they name something typical from their cuisine, and I'm like, oh, I have no idea how it's made. I have no idea what ingredients are in there. I have no culturally competent. All the cultures that you normally work really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. That's why I created the podcast. I'm like, there's so much that I don't know about different cultures. And if I can learn more about it and have other people listen to these, awesome conversations, they can benefit from it too. So thank you for saying that. Is there anything more that you want to discuss about your niche?
As far as like diabetes, I feel like it's just so hard sometimes, because I have patients in the past who have done so good, and then they get tired of it. So, going back to the motivational interviewing, it's so good to like have continuous follow up, and make sure that they stay on track, and make sure that they stay motivated, because it's so easy to get so exhausted with, trying to take all your food into consideration, take your meds, and if you're on insulin. So I feel like, it's really good to have that relationship with your patient, with the motivational interviewing, and staying present in their journey to better health.
Yeah, meeting patients where they're at. I can definitely see that in dialysis sometimes. Patients are doing very well with their nutrition, with their labs, with their diet, but sometimes they just get, fed up and burnt out of like always having to be so careful with their phosphorus and their potassium and their fluids and this. And
Oh gosh.
so, yeah, I can understand how it can be a lot.
Yeah, and I'm sure even more with kidney and dialysis. That's so tough.
Well, thank you for sharing so much with us about your personal food culture and how you work with your population. If anyone who's listening to this wants to work with you, how can they find you?
So they can find me either on Instagram. My name is the dietitian underscore Marie, or my website, which is amorenutrition.com. So basically like amor, and then an E, and then nutrition.com. Or on Facebook, although I don't really get on Facebook that much, but on Facebook, Amore Nutrition as well. And I do accept insurance, and I do accept plans from out of state, some of them. We can do something through telehealth, but I can definitely work with anyone to see, how we can work something out.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're taking insurance. I feel that is really helpful in removing barriers for people to be able to see a dietitian. So.
Definitely, definitely. I agree.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Marie.
Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Marie for being on this week's episode. If you want to support this podcast, visit buymeacoffee.com/foodculturecurious. You can also support us by sharing it with someone who you think will enjoy it, and you can rate this episode. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We're at Food Culture Curious, or you can join our Facebook group, Food Culture Curious Dietitians. And now for a quick disclaimer. Food Culture Curious is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not take the place of medical advice from licensed healthcare professionals. If you need to seek medical advice, please speak to your healthcare provider. Thank you for listening.